I'll never forget the night we stumbled upon that thread on Reddit. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. A group of posts, each one more cryptic than the last, discussing a mysterious ritual that promised to unlock the secrets of chaos magic. We were a group of friends, all self-proclaimed chaos magicians, eager to push the boundaries of our craft and explore the unknown. Our group was called the Order of the Blackened Sun, and we saw ourselves as pioneers in the world of modern magic. We spent countless hours discussing the thread, poring over ancient texts, and seeking out other like-minded individuals who might be able to shed some light on the ritual. The more we delved into the subject, the more intrigued I became. There was something about that thread that resonated with me, something that spoke to a deep-seated desire for power and understanding. We decided to take a closer look, to see if we could uncover any concrete information about this ritual and what it promised to deliver. Our first stop was a website called The Hidden Lexicon, a repository of ancient knowledge that seemed to be the hub of our research. The site was shrouded in mystery, with cryptic messages and symbols woven throughout its pages. We spent hours browsing through the archives, searching for any mention of the ritual or similar practices. And then, it hit us, a thread on the occult subreddit, discussing a ritual that promised to grant the practitioner immense power and insight into the workings of the universe. The post was titled The Invocation of Magick, and it spoke of an ancient deity who could grant unimaginable power to those who invoked his name. We were immediately hooked, our curiosity piqued by the promise of such power. We spent hours discussing the thread, debating the merits of the ritual and its potential consequences. Some of us were skeptical, warning that we might be playing with forces beyond our control. Others were more optimistic, convinced that this was the key to unlocking the secrets of chaos magic. As I look back on those early days of research, I can see how naive we were. We thought we could contain the power of Magick, harness it for our own purposes. But as we delved deeper into the ritual, something began to feel off. The symbols seemed to shift and twist before our eyes, like living things. And then there were the whispers, faint at first, but growing louder with each passing day. Whispers that seemed to come from nowhere, yet echoed in my mind long after I'd gone to bed. It was as if we had disturbed something, awakened a power that would not be silenced. As we delved deeper into the thread, the posts began to take on a life of their own. The language was poetic and obscure, speaking of ancient deities and forbidden knowledge. It was as if the writers had stumbled upon something that they couldn't quite articulate, something that lurked just beyond the edge of perception. We became increasingly obsessed with uncovering the truth behind the ritual, poring over every post, every comment, every reference to a specific text or symbol. The group's dynamics began to shift, as some members became more intense and others more cautious. I remember one member, Sarah, who was convinced that she had discovered a hidden pattern in the posts, a code that, when deciphered, would reveal the secrets of the ritual. She spent hours transcribing every post, searching for any hint of what lay beneath the surface. Her obsession bordered on mania, and we began to worry about her mental health. But she was undeterred, driven by a conviction that she had stumbled upon something momentous. The others were more measured in their approach, preferring to take a step back and consider the implications of our discoveries. We knew that we were playing with fire, that the ritual promised to unlock secrets that were best left unspoken. And yet, we couldn't help ourselves. We were addicted to the thrill of discovery, the rush of adrenaline that came with each new revelation. As we dug deeper, we began to realize that we were not alone in our quest for knowledge. There were others out there, lurking in the shadows, watching us with an intensity that made our skin crawl. They seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time, their presence hinted at by subtle references in the posts, and a growing sense of unease that settled over us like a shroud. We began to wonder if we had stumbled upon something much bigger than ourselves, something that threatened to consume us all. As we delved deeper into the world of chaos magic, our encounters with fellow practitioners became increasingly unsettling. At first, it seemed like a dream come true to find others who shared our passion and dedication to the craft. We joined online forums and social media groups, eager to connect with like-minded individuals and learn from their experiences. But as we got to know them better, we began to realize that something was off. Their posts and comments seemed friendly at first, but eventually, they revealed darker aspects of their nature. Some were overly aggressive, questioning our loyalty and intentions at every turn. Others were cryptic and evasive, hinting at secrets and mysteries that we couldn't quite grasp. I remember one person, Rachel, who seemed perfect on the surface, a beautiful, charming woman with a quick wit and a love for all things occult. But as we chatted online, she began to reveal a more sinister side. She spoke of rituals and sacrifices, of ancient powers and forbidden knowledge. Her words sent shivers down my spine, and I couldn't help but wonder if I had stumbled into something much bigger than myself. The group's tensions rose as we began to question each other's loyalty and intentions. Some members were more cautious, warning us about the dangers of getting too close to the truth. Others were more reckless, eager to push the boundaries of what was acceptable. I found myself caught in the middle, torn between my desire for knowledge and my growing sense of unease. As we navigated these treacherous waters, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that there were eyes upon us, waiting for us to make our next move. And then, there was the matter of the anonymous messages. At first, they seemed like harmless jokes or taunts from rival practitioners. But as time went on, they grew more menacing, hinting at a deeper conspiracy that threatened to destroy everything we had worked for. As we delved deeper into the world of chaos magic, our next move was to infiltrate the dark web. We knew it wouldn't be easy, but we were determined to uncover the truth. Through an online forum, we made contact with a mysterious individual who claimed to have access to forbidden knowledge. He offered to guide us through the ritual, and we accepted without hesitation. At first, the information was sparse, but as we continued to communicate, he began to reveal more and more about the practice. We became increasingly enthralled, convinced that we were unlocking hidden powers beyond our wildest dreams. The rituals themselves were grueling and intense, pushing us to our limits both physically and mentally. But we were driven by a sense of curiosity and discovery, eager to uncover the secrets that lay beneath the surface. As we progressed through the ritual, we began to notice strange occurrences around us. Equipment would malfunction, and strange noises could be heard in the dead of night. Some members of the group began to experience vivid dreams and visions, as if the practice was awakening something deep within them. I remember one night, Sarah woke up with a start, her eyes wide with fear. She had seen a vision of a dark figure lurking in the shadows, its presence filling her with an unspeakable horror. We tried to reassure her that it was just a dream, but deep down, we knew that something was amiss. The ritual seemed to be taking on a life of its own, and we were powerless to stop it. As we continued to push forward, the stakes grew higher. We began to realize that we had unleashed forces beyond our control, and that the consequences of our actions would be dire if we failed to stop. The anonymous messages from the dark web returned, this time with a sense of urgency and warning. They seemed to be telling us that we were playing with fire, that the ritual was not what it seemed. But we were too far in to turn back now. We had to see this through, no matter the cost. As we delved deeper into the world of chaos magic, one member of the group became increasingly obsessed with a mysterious figure who seemed to be pulling the strings from behind the scenes. The figure's true nature remained unclear, but their influence grew stronger by the day. At first, it was just a whisper in the darkness, a hint of something lurking just out of sight. But as time went on, the whispers became louder and the presence grew more pronounced. It was as if the figure was watching us, studying our every move, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The member of the group who had become fixated on this figure began to experience strange visions and nightmares, as if the figure was invading their mind. They would see glimpses of a dark, twisted world, filled with creatures that defied explanation. The figure's influence seemed to be seeping into our reality, warping our perceptions and twisting our minds. We tried to ignore it, to pretend that it wasn't happening, but we couldn't shake the feeling that we were being manipulated, controlled by some unseen force. As the days passed, the figure's presence grew stronger, until it seemed to be everywhere at once. We would catch glimpses of them out of the corner of our eye, only to turn and find no one there. It was as if they were made of smoke, invisible and intangible. The member of the group who had become obsessed with this figure began to act strangely, as if they were under some kind of spell. They would repeat phrases over and over like a mantra, until it became a maddening refrain in our minds. "The figure is coming," they would say, or "the figure will reveal itself." We tried to snap them out of it, to shake them back to reality, but it was no use. The figure had taken hold, and we were powerless to resist its influence. As the group's involvement with the rituals deepened, they began to experience strange and unsettling occurrences. Equipment would malfunction, and eerie messages would appear on their devices. At first, it was just a few scattered instances, but soon the events became more frequent and intense. The air around us seemed to grow thick with an otherworldly energy, making it hard to focus or think clearly. I started to notice that certain words or phrases kept appearing in my mind, like a mantra that refused to be silenced. "The ritual is not what you think it is," I'd hear myself say over and over again, until the words became a desperate scream in my ear. The others seemed to be experiencing similar phenomena, their faces twisted with fear and confusion. We'd gather around our devices, hoping to find some answers or sense of normalcy, but all we got were cryptic messages and distorted images. It was as if we were being watched by unseen eyes, the weight of those gaze pressing down on us like a physical force. One night, I woke up to find my device displaying a message that made no sense. "The figure is waiting." I tried to shake off the feeling of dread, telling myself it was just some kind of glitch or prank, but deep down I knew it was more than that. We were being pulled into something dark and ancient, something that threatened to consume us whole. The ritual had become a kind of twisted game, one where we were the pawns and the figure was the master, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were running out of time. The group began to exhibit cult-like behavior, including groupthink and a willingness to overlook red flags in favor of the ritual's supposed benefits. They started to see themselves as part of an elite group of initiates, chosen for their dedication and commitment to the cause. They would gather around our devices, sharing stories of their experiences and trying to convince each other that they were on the right path. It was like we were trapped in some kind of collective delusion, where the lines between reality and fantasy were blurred beyond recognition. The figure's presence seemed to be growing stronger, feeding off our fear and uncertainty. We started to turn on each other, accusing each other of being weak or disloyal if they questioned the ritual's authority. It was a toxic atmosphere, one that threatened to consume us all. I began to feel like I was losing myself in the process, like I was becoming just another cog in the figure's twisted machine. The others seemed to be falling under its spell, their eyes taking on a glazed-over quality as they repeated the ritual's mantra over and over again. It was like we were all trapped in some kind of dark ritual, one that would stop at nothing to claim our souls. And yet, despite the danger, I couldn't bring myself to leave. I felt like I had to see this through, no matter how twisted or corrupt it became. The figure's influence seemed to be growing stronger by the day, and I was starting to wonder if I had made a terrible mistake by getting involved in the first place. As they progressed through the rituals, the group encountered increasingly bizarre and unexplained phenomena. Some members began to experience vivid hallucinations, while others reported feeling an intense sense of dread or despair. The air was thick with tension as they struggled to understand what was happening. It was as if they had crossed a threshold into a realm where the laws of reality no longer applied. I tried to focus on the physical sensations in my body, but even that seemed distorted. My senses were on high alert, and I could feel every fiber of my being straining towards some unknown endpoint. The others seemed just as unsettled, their faces twisted with fear or confusion. We exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to do next. The figure loomed over us, its presence palpable in the air. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized that we had been playing with forces beyond our control. The ritual had become a kind of twisted game, one where we were forced to confront the unknown and the unexplainable. And yet, despite the terror that gripped me, I couldn't help but feel drawn towards it. It was as if I was being pulled into some dark abyss, one from which there was no return. The others seemed to be feeling the same way, their eyes fixed on the figure with a mixture of fascination and horror. We were trapped in a web of uncertainty, unsure of what lay ahead or how to escape. And yet we pressed on, driven by some unseen force towards a destination that only the figure knew. The group performed a particularly disturbing ritual that resulted in catastrophic consequences for one of their own. The incident served as a stark warning about the dangers of delving too deep into the unknown. The air was thick with tension as we gathered around the makeshift altar, our eyes fixed on the figure at its center. It was as if we were all holding our collective breath, waiting for the ritual to reach its climax. And then, in an instant, it happened. A loud crack of thunder shook the air, and a blinding flash of light illuminated the room. When my vision returned, I saw that one of our own had fallen to the ground, their body contorted in unnatural poses. The others were frozen in shock, unable to move or speak. It was as if we had all been struck mute by the sheer horror of what we had just witnessed. The figure at the center of the ritual seemed to be changing. Its form was shifting and flowing like a liquid, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly energy. I felt a scream building in my throat, but it was drowned out by the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. We stumbled backwards, tripping over each other in our haste to escape the ritual's deadly consequences. The figure loomed behind us, its presence seeming to grow stronger with every step we took away from the altar. I couldn't shake the feeling that we had unleashed a horror beyond our comprehension, one that would haunt us for the rest of our lives. Through careful research and investigation, the group uncovered evidence that suggests the rituals are not just mere exercises in free will, but actual gateways for malevolent forces. They began to realize they may have unleashed something terrible upon the world. The more they delved into the mysteries of the rituals, the more they discovered a dark history that threatened to consume them all. As we dug deeper, We found ancient texts and artifacts that spoke of an otherworldly power that lurked beyond the veil of reality. It was as if the rituals were a key to unlocking a door that had been hidden for centuries, and once opened, it could never be closed again. We began to suspect that our actions in performing the rituals were not just mere curiosity, but a deliberate attempt to summon forth an ancient evil. The more we did so, the more we felt the presence of something malevolent lurking just beyond the edge of perception. One by one, we started to vanish, drawn into the depths of the ritual's power. Our screams echoed through the desolate landscape, but no one came to save us. We were consumed by an eternal darkness that seemed to have no end. And yet, even in death, our bodies remained bound to the rituals, their spirits trapped forever in a cycle of torment and suffering. The world was left with a terrible secret. We had unleashed a horror beyond comprehension, one that would haunt humanity for all eternity. The ritual's power continued to grow, spreading its dark influence across the land like a cancer. And at its heart, the figure remained, waiting patiently for the next victim to stumble into its deadly embrace. The world was forever changed, and we were left with nothing but the echoes of our own screams, haunting us for all eternity. As the group's understanding of the situation grew more dire, they started to turn on each other in fear and paranoia. Alliances were forged and broken, and loyalty was tested as they struggled to survive the coming apocalypse. The once strong bonds between them began to fray, replaced by suspicion and mistrust. Each member became convinced that the others were hiding secrets or plotting against them. The group's cohesion began to disintegrate, leaving only a scattered few who remained determined to find a way out of the abyss. They scoured the desolate landscape for any sign of hope, but every door they opened led only to more darkness and despair. The air was thick with tension as each member waited for the others to make their move, unsure of who would be the last one standing. In this atmosphere of distrust and desperation, even the most basic necessities became a struggle. Food and water were scarce, and the group's morale continued to plummet. Yet despite it all, they refused to give up. They knew that as long as they had each other, there was still a chance to survive the horrors that lurked in the shadows. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the group's numbers began to dwindle. One by one, they fell victim to the unknown forces that haunted them. The last few remaining survivors were left to pick up the pieces of a shattered existence. They wandered the barren wasteland, searching for any glimmer of hope, but it seemed as though the very fabric of reality had been torn apart. And then, there was only one left. I was consumed by an unshakable feeling of dread as I gazed upon the world around me. The familiar landscape, once teeming with life and vibrancy, now seemed to be shrouded in a sinister veil. Every rock, every tree, every blade of grass appeared to be twisted, distorted, like a reflection in a funhouse mirror. And then, it hit me, the horrifying revelation that our reality was not what it seemed. The world we thought we knew had been subtly manipulated by the forces we had unleashed, blurring the lines between reality and madness. Every step I took felt like a betrayal, as if I was walking on thin ice, poised to plunge into an abyss of unending terror. The memories of our descent into madness came flooding back, the screams, the paranoia, the desperate attempts to survive in a world that seemed determined to destroy us. But it was all a ruse, a carefully crafted illusion designed to keep us distracted from the truth. Our reality was not what we thought it was. It was a prison, a dream world created by some malevolent force to lull us into complacency. The more I realized this, the more my grip on sanity began to slip. The world around me seemed to warp and distort, like a painting melting in the rain. I stumbled through the desolate landscape, searching for any glimmer of hope, but it was all just an illusion. The truth was that we were trapped in a never-ending nightmare, with no escape from the horrors that lurked within. And then I saw a figure standing on the horizon, watching me with cold, calculating eyes. It was the mastermind behind our downfall, the one who had manipulated us all along. I knew then that there was no hope, no escape. Our reality was a prison, and we were its captive audience.